All right. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about a guy that has been rumored to the Padres quite a bit, Joey Gallo. And Chase, you kind of have some of his numbers up just to briefly go over before we start discussing his potential fit in San Diego. Do you want to go over those really quickly?
Yeah, so he is currently leading the league in walks with 63, and he is eighth in on-base percentage with is 396. He's almost getting on base 40% of the time, and he's walking at an insane clip. Sure, he may strike out a lot. We all know that Joey Gallo is a strikeout artist, but he provides some serious pop to the bat. He runs like crazy in the outfield. He has an arm. He plays solid defense. He could be the missing piece to propel this offense up to the next point. And even then, if somebody needs an off day, I'm pretty sure he can play all three outfield positions, including center, because he does have some wheels for his size and he has a really strong arm.
Yeah, Joey Gallo's got some massive pop. He's hitting 239 right now, but that kind of doesn't really speak volumes to how much he's been getting on base. Like Chase said, getting on almost 40% of the time. And that would be really helpful for this team right now, especially considering there are sometimes droughts where the Padres have tough times even getting guys on base. And having someone consistently in the lineup, just that presence to be able to get on base almost 40% of the time is huge. I don't know where you would bat him either, before Tatis would be most optimal because you want him to bring in those runs. But right now, Joey Gallo has 20 home runs. He's hit home runs in 5 straight games recently. 46 RBI, 6 stolen bases, and 894 OPS. So he's putting up some really good stats other than his average. But other than that, he'd be a really valuable piece. I don't know what it would take to get him, but Joey Gallo has been on, it feels like the Padres' radar for a little while now, just because of AJ Preller's connection to the Rangers. So he's been on fans' radar for a while. It seems like he's probably been on Preller's radar for a while too. And, finally things are starting to come to fruition. The Rangers aren't a very good baseball team. We are a very good baseball team. And Joey Gallo would be huge for us considering, Eric Hosmer is a liability. We don't know what would happen with Will Myers and Eric Hosmer. We talked about maybe, Will Myers plays first sometimes, or, Eric Hosmer comes off the bench against lefties. We don't know, but there's no denying Joey Gallo would be a huge acquisition for this team.
So you brought up where he would hit. I think he would, and I've heard some people say he might be a leadoff hitter. I think he's a great guy to put 2 and then have Tatis 3, Manny 4, Grisham 5. I think that's an amazing 1 through 5. I think that might be maybe the best 1 through 5 in the league, especially when you consider how great Fam's been the last month. And we talked about that yesterday. But I think Gallo, a lot of people don't like him because he strikes out a lot. And yeah, that's a frustrating thing, but that's also kind of what baseball's got to at this point. Guys are swinging for, higher better launch angles, trying to just hit bombs and walk. That's really Gallo's game. Hit bombs, walk, be a tremendous athlete. So if you bring him to hit 2, I think that 2, 3, 4, if you have him, then Tatis, then Manny, if you're an opposing pitcher, you can't hang anything. If you hang something, that's a run. Every time you go through the 2, 3, 4 spot. And yes, Gallo strikes out a lot. But if he's walking and almost getting on base at a 40% clip, that means he's also seeing a lot of pitches. So I think the Padres, right now, in my opinion, their biggest, what they've struggled the most with in terms of hitting is getting runs early and getting starters out of the game quickly. Because we've seen a lot of guys where it's just an average starter and he goes out and tosses 6 scoreless innings. That's going to be really, really scary if that's still the case come playoff time. I think that having a move for Gallo might be the best way to fix that. And I also would say I think that Gallo's probably going to be a little bit more expensive than everyone thinks he'd be. I think that one guy I've definitely heard a lot about getting moved is probably Luis Campusano. We've also heard a lot of noise on Ryan Weathers. And I don't know if that's those guys are the move, but I've heard some stuff on them. You also have other guys that are maybe lower prospects like Tucapita. I think it would cost a lot to make a move for him. And I think that's where people they're struggling to kind of grasp at, I think, of is it worth it to trade all that for a guy that strikes out maybe one of the most in the leagues? But I think that's really not being fair to what he brings to the table. Yes, he's going to strike out a lot, but if he's hitting at the beginning of the lineup, if he's striking out, that means he's seeing a lot of pitches. And if he's getting on base and hitting bombs from the 2 spot, that's exactly what you want from that spot, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'm at on him. But Chase, what's your just overall thoughts? Do you think that it would cost too much? Do you think it's worth it? Where are you kind of at? Because I know that that's not all of our like favorite move, but I personally like it, and I think it'd be a good move.
He wouldn't be my number one trade target, but he would be at least top 5. Like, he does what he does really well. He gets on base at a high clip. He walks a lot, and when he hits the ball, he hits it hard. He either hits it for a double, he can hit it for a triple, and if not, it's going way out of the park. So he does see a lot of pitches, and that does help the lineup. Like I mentioned in an earlier episode, the more pitches that a pitcher has to throw, you get out of the games earlier, you get to the bullpen earlier, and the chances are more bullpen arms you see, one of them's not going to have a good day. And being able to have people on and be able to run the base, because Joey Gallo can steal bases. If you don't watch him, he hits really hard and he can run really fast and has a really good arm. That's basically all you need to know about him. He can steal bases, and I would like having him at the 3 spot. I'd go Pham, Grish, Gallo, Tatis, Machado, because I really like Tatis in that cleanup spot. We saw what he does in the cleanup spot. It's tremendous, and just putting guys on for him just elevates his game even more, and probably he will drive in more guys than the rest of the league could even imagine. So the problem that I have, or kind of wrapping my head around it, is Campusano and Weathers really worth the price for Gallo? That's the problem I have grasping, because I think that is a little too expensive for that guy. I'd rather go with a cheaper option like Starling Marte, because then you could package him with the deal with Sandy Alcantara, who currently has the most innings pitched in the league last time I checked. And he's sitting around like a 3 ERA, which is really good. And if you could package that and get Weathers and Campusano up, because Alcantara's got a few years on his deal. Marte is a little bit older, but he's a little faster, plays all 3 positions a little bit more well, has a better batting average, and probably gets on base just as much. I would rather go with that deal than just getting Gallo.
Fully on board with that, Chase. I'd probably have Gallo hitting second, and I'd probably move Cronenworth down to the lineup, which is not a knock on Cronenworth. It's just a matter of, I brought it up in that All-Star video. He can hit anywhere in the lineup, and he's going to be productive. Which is really good to see, So if we do acquire Gallo, I'd like to see him either batting second, but I wouldn't put him anywhere other than second or 7th, just because if he's at the bottom of the lineup, it's always really nice to have someone at the bottom of the lineup that can always get on, and maybe for that DH. Mentioning a DH, I just want to say real quick, Jorge Mateo, oh my God, that guy needs to get off the team. I saw him after the Dodger game I went to, and I was like, oh, hey, look, it's Jorge Mateo. And it was pretty cool, but I just don't really like Jorge Mateo. But back onto the topic. I'd love to have Sandy Alcantara and Starling Marte. I think that'd be a really good acquisition. I'm not in favor of giving up Brian Weathers if that's what it takes to get Joey Gallo, just because I hate that he's probably going to strike out over 40% of the time, even though he does do everything else really well. I'm not in favor of seeing a bases loaded situation where he strikes out, and it's going to happen, but 40% of the time I'm not on board with. However, he is getting on another 40% of the time, which is great.
So here's a quick question. Say that they do trade a lot for Gallo, and it costs a lot. Maybe it is Weathers and Camp here, and I don't know if that's the case. Also, the reason we've been bringing up Weathers so much is because there's been a lot of smoke around his name and him potentially getting moved. We also all really like Ryan Weathers. So we're not just like, oh, let's get Weathers out of here. That's not our intentions when we talk about him. That's just kind of the guys that we think are going to get moved. And yes, Weathers looks like he's going to be a tremendous player for quite some time. That's what it costs a lot of times to trade for guys at the deadline. And right now, it seems like the Padres, the biggest things that they're trying to acquire are depth, or a starting outfielder, or a starting pitcher. So that's going to cost a lot. But I don't know. I think that the two things they need are, it's going to be an outfielder and it's going to be a starter. So if you're trading both those guys for Gallo, I think that it's a risky move, 100%. But the only thing I would add is, what if they're trying to move for Gallo and they're not picturing him being the guy he is right now. Like they think, because we've seen Preller do this with a lot of other guys where he's like, oh, I can, there's this little problem with his swing or whatever it is. And if we change that, it's going to reduce this. If they're making a move for Gallo, and we'll take it right when they do, it's going to be, okay, this is Gallo, this is what he's been. But maybe they think that there's some reason that he's striking out so much. And I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but if it is, I would say it's worth it in that case. But like he's got to be a star. So that would be my only thing, because we've seen that Preller is an amazing baseball scout, and sometimes it's little things that we don't notice. So I think that if that's the reasoning behind the trade, I think that makes a lot more sense. But I agree, Isaac. Striking out 40% of the time is a little bit scary, so it's tough. So I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. But anything else you guys want to add on these potential trades, and specifically Gallo?
I'll go first real quick. The only problem I have with what you're saying is that Gallo's been in the league for a few years, or more than a few years, and everybody was saying that when he first came into the league. His first game in the league, he hit a home run, then he hit a triple, then he hit a double. I think he was a single away from the cycle, and he couldn't get to it. And everybody thought, oh my God, what is this guy capable of? And then the next few years, everybody kind of figured out that it was home run or bust. And now I think the last couple of years, he's starting to get on base more. He's still not maybe hitting as much, but he's getting on base more. But to strike out as much as he does and to give up as much as that they want for him, it's the part that I have a problem with. Just when you want a guy that gets on base a lot, you don't want them to strike out a lot, because then it's just like, okay, cool, this guy's either going to get on base, he's going to get a home run, or you know what? He's walking, or he's going to strike out. And like Isaac said, there's a bases loaded situation. He's either going to walk or strike out. There's not going to be much middle ground in between that. And I have a problem.
Wait. You're talking about where he's getting traded to. That's when he's hitting the home run, man.
And plus, I just think Preller and the Rangers, he needs to get over it. And it's like that X that he has to keep going back to. It's just not good for the Padres. It's toxic. You need to cut it off. Like, you need to start moving around and be like, okay, there are better pieces around the league that if this team falls, there's the Jesse Winkers, Nick Castellanos, the Starling Martes. If the Nationals fall, Kyle Schwarber. There are better people than Joey Gallo to go and trade for.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to get him. My favorite target's Jesse Winker by like a long shot, even though I know it's going to take a lot to get him. I love Jesse Winker on this team. But regarding Joey Gallo, not the biggest fan of his. I would like him on this team, though. He'd be a great acquisition for sure. But I'm okay with giving up Campusano just because, Caratini's in a good spot. He has to be here with Yu Darvish, and then Nola is always going to be a really good hitting catcher, and he's very versatile. And we'll always be able to replace him. There's catchers within the system that are very good, and there's going to be more catchers within the system that are going to be good as well. So I'm okay with giving him Campusano. Weathers is a little different. If we're moving Weathers, it's got to be for a starting pitcher that's going to be, a star, or Jesse Winker, who's going to be a star for us as well. That's my only opinions on it, though.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a controversial guy. I mean, Joey Gallo's, a lot of people love him and a lot of people hate him. So I think that'll probably do it for today's episode, though. I really wonder if this trade does get worked out, because that's the guy I've seen the Padres link to most. There was some Winker smoke. We talked about Scherzer a bunch. I think that was more us just kind of getting excited to potentially add him. And a lot of people didn't like the deal where we talked about moving Weathers for him. Totally understand that as well. And like we said, we like Ryan Weathers a lot, but I just think that that's a guy that it seems like they've been at least hearing offers on him. And same thing goes for Luis Campusano, I feel like. And maybe that's just Twitter. Maybe Twitter just doesn't like Weathers or Campusano, but that's just kind of what I've seen. And I really wonder if Joey Gallo does get moved and what the price tag is, because I think that's the big issue. It's not, would Gallo be a good addition? I think, yes, he would be a good addition, but at what cost? And that's what's kind of scary. And also, Chase, I think it was a good thing to bring up that he's been in the league for a long time. My thought was only like, maybe there's just one thing, and Preller's just watching Gallo every night, just freaking out. Like, if he just changes this, imagine. So I don't know if that's the case, but if it is, and they think Gallo's a star, I say, if the price is right, make a move for him. But I also think Starling Marte as an outfield piece is a great option. And there's a lot of guys. I know a lot of people want to talk about Ketel Marte. I don't know how the Diamondbacks would trade him in the division. Dude's a monster. I think that's very unlikely. But also another guy that we heard that a listener brought up, Aaron Judge, Chase and Isaac. You guys were not fans of that. But it's going to be interesting because I do think that there's going to be a big move to the deadline. Maybe it's Joey Gallo, maybe it's not. But anyone listening, comment who you think they should go after, and maybe just comment some potential deals, because I always love hearing different deals around the deadline. That's what Twitter's been blowing up with. So I think that's going to do it for today's episode, though. And thanks, everyone, for listening.